So I am recording. You should have a notice that that's happening. The rules always apply to the recordings, which is to say everybody's got 51% of the vote for whatever we ever do with the recordings. And this is going to be Tristan's second day or first and a half day, depending on how you want to count the short first day. And everything we should be talking about that. I did send you another earphone hook. I put it
Okay. Thanks.
into regular mail, and it'll probably be there. I guess it's holidays and Sundays and whatever, so it's hard to know. But within a day or two, you should have another hook if the gluing thing doesn't work. And I think I mailed it on Friday, maybe Friday or Saturday, before the holiday. Anything else that we should be talking about before we look at beeps today?
I think we can dig in.
I'm ready. You ready, Amber?
Yes, I am.
All right, and Tristan, Amber and I will probably alternate back and forth. So I'll do the first beep, she'll do the second beep. And she has a right to ask questions on the first beep, and I have a right to ask questions on the second beep. And we might have conversations that would be two-way or three-way or whatever.
Mm.
The object is for three people with their to put their gray matters together to try to figure out what's going on in Tristan's experience at the moment of the beep. And mostly there are no rules on that procedure other than let's see whether we can do it well. But with that, I'm ready for beep number one.
All right. So in this beep, and there are only 3 beeps, and I did wear it for the 3 hours. So maybe I'll wear it for longer next time.
Well, we'll see. The beeps are random, and so if the beeper happened to choose long intervals in between the beeps, it can take 3 hours to get 3 beeps.
Mm.
That's sort of the outside edge of 3 beeps, but let's do 3 beeps, and then we'll proceed.
Yeah. Okay. So sorry, my cat just spilled a drink on the floor. So I'm writing the phrase, all we imagine is light. But what I'm experiencing is I'm innerly voicing the word imagine.
And by the word imagine, do you mean I'm not innerly voicing all we imagine is the light? Is the light? Is that the sentence? All we imagine is the light?
It is light. Yeah, it's a film title. Well, all I'm innerly voicing, I'm sort of conscious of my writing the whole thing, but what I'm really picking out is the word imagine, and I'm doing the same thing I described yesterday where I'm innerly voicing it.
Okay. So I would say let's set aside whether it's the same or different from what we did yesterday, which is not to say that I'm disagreeing with that this is the same as what we did yesterday, but I'd rather that we approach each sample sort of on its own merit. And then when we're done, we can say, well, yeah, this is like it was yesterday, but the object is never to fall into the trap of thinking that we know what we're talking about when there's a possibility that we don't. And so one of the ways that we do that is to say, well, let's treat each sample as its own deal. So I'm innerly voicing the word imagine, and it's just that word, even though I'm reading the whole sentence. I'm writing the whole sentence.
Right.
And I'm sort of aware of what I'm writing, but innerly voicing just that one word and not the whole sequence of words, and the beep happens to catch me at that one word.
Right.
Okay. And by innerly voicing, can you tell me more about what that?
So I'm experiencing the word more strongly than I am the rest of the words. And this experience of the word has more in common with speaking than hearing, even though it is not, I'm not actually doing either one of them in my consciousness.
Okay. So there's no words coming out of your mouth and there's no sounds coming into your ears, but it
Mm.
seems like I am somehow saying imagine, somehow
Yeah.
saying imagine as opposed to hearing imagine.
Yeah.
Okay. And do I say imagine with any particular kind of inflection? Imagine or just sort of neutrally imagine.
Well, the next thing I noted down was I said conscious of an urgency. Um, and the urgency is, I'll need to take better notes next time. Either I didn't quite know what this urgency was in order to describe it more, or I took or my notes weren't thorough enough, but I did feel there was an urgency to this, as if I wanted to make sure that the words I was writing were right.
So the experience is not just of writing the words and not just of saying imagine, but also some sense of urgency, wanting to be right about the whole writing. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah,
So the sense of urgency is not attached to the word imagine. It's attached to the whole.
yeah, yeah. It's attached to the larger experience of
Okay.
writing, particularly.
Okay. And is there anything else going on in this experience? Because we probably ought to get the whole vision
Yes,
thing.
I'm conscious of hearing a complicated guitar line, or intricate, let's say.
And tell me more about that.
So I'm noticing that the jazz guitar line I'm hearing is particularly interesting.
So,
Um,
so the guitar is playing on speakers in the room. Is that right?
yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And so I'm not just hearing it, but I'm also somehow noticing its intricacy.
Mhm. Yeah, without I'm not attaching any words to that experience, but I am hearing that it's doing interesting things.
Okay. And which is stronger? I guess maybe there's sort of four things going on so far. Is that right? Four? By my count is I'm writing all we imagine is light, and I am saying imagine, and I am conscious of some kind of urgency, and I'm hearing the guitar line with its particular intricacy. So those seem like four more or less parallel, separable streams. So
Mm.
first off, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I would say the word imagine is the strongest out of all these.
The innerly spoken word imagine.
Yeah.
And by the strongest, do you mean 50, 10, 10, 10, or 50, or something? I don't care about the numbers, but more can mean 5149 or it can be 99-1, and I would.
Well, it's not 50 because um,
So let's not get lost in the numbers. But what I want to know is whether the imagine is a lot more pop present than the next thing, or sort of evenly, but a little bit more than.
I'd say that it's a fair amount more.
Okay. Then whatever's next.
What's next is, well, the feeling of urgency is sort of like it's hard to describe whether it's hard to describe how apparent that is because it's yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure which is next, the music or the urgency. Probably the urgency and then the music.
And then the writing, is that just happening then? Is that what?
The writing is
And by just happening, I want us to recognize that just because we're engaged in a task doesn't mean it's in our experience. We can perform a task and have no have it not make its way into our consciousness at all.
Right. That's hard for me to say at this moment, to be
Okay.
honest. I haven't. I'm at this moment not particularly in my conscious experience focused on the feeling of my fingers typing. That it's something more. The other stuff is more pronounced.
Okay. And I wasn't necessarily pointing to the feeling in your fingers, but the typing of the words. Did you mean by writing? Did you mean typing in a computer?
Yes. In in that case, then there is an awareness mixed in with all this that what I'm doing is writing the words out. What I'm doing is typing them.
There is an awareness, did you say?
Yeah.
Okay. And in our scheme of things, is that near the bottom of the list or near the top of the list?
It's probably actually related to the urgency.
Okay.
Um,
So we could maybe combine the writing and the urgency into position number two.
yeah.
Okay. All right, then let's talk a little bit more about the urgency. What, by a sense of urgency, what,
Um,
how does that how does that present itself to you?
trying to remember. Um, it's a feeling. It's a feeling rather than it's something a little more ineffable. It's a it feels like something in my body wants this sentence to be right. Um,
And by your body, do you mean specifically in your body or your mind or your soul or your do you,
probably in the sense that, well, I want to try to do it without bringing in some suppositions I have about my how my body is.
that,
So
that would be
I
good.
wish I had written I wish I had written more notes because I want to say there's an almost an anxiety to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And by anxiety, do you mean bodily anxiety or mental anxiety or
Uh,
feeling anxiety, or it doesn't isn't either bodily or mentally or whatever?
both, but on the more both, but on the fairly bodily side
And
of the.
in any particular portion of your body, in your chest, in your head, in your fists, in your back, in your butt, and whatever.
Can't say right now.
Okay. And what I would say about the questions that I'm asking is that they might be impossible questions, so that
Mm,
those the questions that I'm asking might not have answers,
yeah.
and it's possible that they don't have answers for you on this particular day. But now that you've heard those questions, next time you have this kind of an experience, that you you might be more able to answer the questions.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't have a favored option of those. Our object is to figure out basically what we can talk about with each other that makes that aligns with your experience. And it always takes us some number of days to sort that through. And this is our second sample, and so we're in the sorting through process, and will be for a while, it's probably.
Right.
So then let's move on to the guitar line. So I understand that you're hearing an intricate guitar line.
Hmm.
And more than that, somehow the intricacy of this line presents it to you. It's not just the line, it's the intricacy of the line. Is that right?
Um,
So the question that I'm trying to ask is, at the moment of the beep, there's a line playing. And am I noticing the intricacy of that line right at the moment of the beep? Or am I hearing the guitar playing? And then when I look back at it, I can say, wow, that was an intricate line. But at the moment of my experience, I'm just experiencing the line.
I would say that my experience of the line has a flavor of realizing that there's a lot to listen to in the line and a lot that it's doing.
Okay. And that realization, does that seem like more in the realm of hearing? I am hearing my hearing apparatus is tracking or whatever the intricacies of the line, or does it seem more in the realm of analytical, cognitive, sort of meta observation of the intricacies? And here
It's
again,
most
I don't have a favorite. That I'm just trying to
right.
understand.
I would say it's mostly hearing, but there's still a type of something that is a little more than just hearing.
And more in the direction of cognitive, like cognitively
Yeah,
more?
more in the direction of cognitive.
Okay. So it's hearing with a cognitive piece, cognitive
Yeah.
portion, cognitive flavor or something like that.
Mm.
Okay. So let me summarize what I've got out of this. As a matter of fact, I'm typing at my computer and I'm typing the line, all we imagine is light. And that's happening as part of my experience, but not necessarily, but the words themselves are not primarily the portion of my experience. I understand what I'm doing, but it's not like I'm processing those words directly. What I'm mostly into is the word imagine, which I am innerly saying to myself without any particular inflection. But it's a saying experience, not a hearing experience. And it's of the word imagine, not of the just that happens to be, this is the one that happens to be at the moment of the beep. And if the beep had come a microsecond before, it would have been on we. And if it had come a bit before that, it would have been on all. That's not the way it is. It's that I have somehow emphasized the word imagine in this moment, or in this, not in this moment, but in this sentence. I have somehow stepped up the imagine portion of this. And I feel some sense of urgency to get this right. And that attaches to the writing of the sentence. I want to get the sentence right. It's not so much the word imagine that I want to get right, it's the sentence that includes that word. And I am simultaneously hearing on the speakers that are playing in my room an intricate jazz line, and somehow in the realm of cognitively noticing the complexity or intricacy of this line, but that's not at all worded. That's somehow cognitively recognizing complexity, whatever that means.
Mm. Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
Okay. And anything that we would like to improve or add or subtract or whatever to that
To your phrasing?
rendition?
No.
Okay. Then I'm ready to go on to number two, and I'll ask Amber to lead the way on that. But
Okay.
the rules will be I should be able to interrupt Amber, or you should be able to, Tristan, you should be able to say, no, you got that wrong, or whatever. That's part of the, and not only just to Amber, when you should be able to say to me, you've got that wrong, or whatever. The object
Mm.
is to work at letting our language, our joint language, rest lightly on your experience that was ongoing at the moment of the beep.
Mm.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good to go into beep two as well. So, Tristan, what, if anything, was in your experience at the moment of beep two?
Um, at beep two, I'm thinking of um, I'm voicing the word it itself in my mind.
Okay.
And I'm voicing Uh, this word, I'm reading a sentence in which this word figures, but I'm mostly focused on just this word, and I'm also uh, I would say I'm not as strongly speaking it to myself this time, but it's still somewhere in that range of voicing in my mind.
Okay. And can you repeat again, I think I didn't get it, what the word is that you're focused on?
Uh, it's a hyphenate. It's it dash itself.
Okay. And I also heard you say that this word was not as strongly spoken. Could you tell me a little bit more about what that means?
Um, as the last sample, but maybe it's best to go sample by sample.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
it still was, I was still voicing that word to myself and not really anything else in that particular sentence at that time.
Okay. And I take it, so it itself was part of like a larger sentence.
Right.
I'm wondering, is there anything about this larger sentence that's, I guess, part of the experience? I hear that really I'm just about it itself, but is there anything about this larger sentence, or is it just I happened to be reading and it itself was there and it was this long sentence, or is that just
No, because what I was thinking about as well as that word was um, something that I needed to get done in my house. Um, or it was another task. This was actually difficult because I think at the time of the beep I had trouble even immediately thinking about what it was that I felt needed to get done. But so I have a couple options for what that might be. Um, but it was definitely a thinking of something that needed to be done. So it was either cleaning my place or tasks that I needed to do for the week. Um, and I would say that this thinking of something that needed to be done was um, unsymbolized, so I wasn't necessarily didn't have words attached to it. Um, it was just a feeling that I needed to do something.
okay? Um, so I'll stick with this for now then. I still have a few more questions about the voicing piece, but I'd like to stick with this right now. So I hear that there's this, I need to get something done. And I hear this something, so I'm wondering at the moment of the beep, is this, I need to get something done? Is it non-specific, or is it I need to clean my place, I need to do things for the week, or is it just broadly something needs to happen?
I think it's one or the others, and I can't tell which it is at this moment. To speaking to you, I think if you go into my thought, it would have been something specific. If you freeze the moment of thought, I couldn't manage to figure out what it was after, or maybe it wasn't as specific, which is why I had trouble. But um, yeah.
Okay.
So let me tease apart an option here because I think what you said is probably is important, Tristan, and that is I think
Hmm.
it's possible to be thinking about something specific and yet not to know what that something specific is. I think that is a possibility.
Oh,
It might
interesting.
not be possible to, in the real world, if you're talking about something, you probably have to be saying what it is that you're talking about. But that's not the the rules of the inner world do not follow the rules of the outer world.
Mm. Interesting. Um,
Okay. So yeah, so we don't have to latch onto one thing today, but I think as Dr. Hilbert said, right, it's possible that it could have been something specific. It could have been just this something had to be done. But I'm wondering also, is there like is this an emotional kind of a feeling, or is this like a cognizing, like I'm somehow analytically um, thinking about what it is I need to do, or is it this kind of emotional
Definitely
thing?
both. It is tied to an anxiety,
Okay.
uh, 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 also a bodily feeling of anxiety,
Okay.
um, which doesn't necessarily, which is difficult to locate to any one particular part of the body.
Okay. So there's something I need to do. There's a bit of this is tied to an anxiety, but it's somehow bodily. Can't say where bodily, but it is somehow bodily.
Yeah.
And is there anything more to say about how that part presents itself to you?
Um, um, there were a few things I was thinking of, but none I can say with certainty, so I'll say no.
Okay. Okay. Just gonna write that down.
So let me ask a couple of questions, which may be in the realm of what you were trying to think of. And by the way, you should feel free to see whether we can work out something. So if you're sort of half baked something, we can get it out there, and then we can either discard it or bake it the rest of the way or whatever. But so I haven't yet figured out whether this I need to get something done is more or less or both or one or the other a cognitive thing, or a feeling anxiety towards something. That would be one possibility. Or I'm thinking that there's things that I got to get. I'm thinking that there's this thing I got to get done, even though I don't know what this thing is at the moment. I'm thinking about that, and tied to that is I anxietily, bodily feel that it needs to get done.
I think the thinking part of me is thinking of something specific, which I can't say, but the bodily part of me feels an urgency and anxiety to that thought.
So it seems like both a thinking cognitive part and an affectively anxiety part intertwined or related or
Right,
shared or
yeah,
whatever towards something that needs to be done.
right.
And is the thinking part the cognitive thing part? Even though it's not specific about what it is it specific about I need to get something done? Or is it sort of like there's a cognitive gist?
Whatever I'm thinking about at that moment needs to get done. I would say it's the gist. It's the gist that whatever I'm thinking about at that moment needs to be completed.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Um, and I'd like to go back to the it itself portion.
Mm.
So, tell me how is that present in your experience?
Um, It's almost tied to uh, there's almost it's hard for me to describe this, but there's almost more struggle with language in this sample. Like maybe there's sort of a fighting going on between my thinking of things that need to be done and my reading, where the thinking of things, unlike the last sample, I think the thinking of things that need to be done is more strong in this sample than the inner voicing of the word, which is still present, but not as powerful.
Okay. And by the something thinking of things that need to get done, how much more powerful? 80-20, 90-10, the numbers don't matter, but just to give us an idea.
60,
75-25,
60, 40.
60-40? Okay. And so this it itself, is this as if I understand that, in the real world, or kind of a phrase we use is as a fact of the universe, we, you're reading this sentence, it contains this it itself, and I'm not speaking it aloud, but I'm somehow voicing it. Is this the, is there, I guess, is this the experience of speaking without really speaking it? Or is this like I'm somehow passively hearing it in my experience, something else?
It's something in between the two, given that I'm not literally imagining speaking or literally imagining hearing, but it's closer to um, as more the qualities of a speaking than a hearing.
Okay. And by somewhere between the two, could you, like, I'm just a little unsure of what that means. Could you, like, explain that to me a little so I can understand?
I would say that the awareness of the word, there's some there's more of the awareness of the sounds of the consonants and vowels in that word an imagining of it being received from somewhere else. Sort of, it's almost imagining. Um, yeah, there's sort of almost an imagining of saying the word.
And by almost, I'm wondering, does almost mean that it's somehow like the experience is not of me fully speaking, or is it somehow like maybe it's because this is less salient, it's just not as strong and I can't pick it out?
Yeah,
Or
it's it's more the fact that there's an automatic part of it that makes it so that I'm not exactly thinking of speaking or hearing. I'm just sort of mm, yeah. I'm struggling with how to describe it. I feel like innerly voicing to myself is the clearest way I can think of it, and then just to say that I don't have a strong imagining of a of it, but that there's a part of me that maybe is hearing myself sounding the word or something.
okay.
I don't think I made it any more clear, but
No, well, I'm just trying to think of like a good way that I could try to potentially tease it apart.
yeah.
Um, so I guess one of the things is I think we've asked this before, but so the experience, is this like the experience of speaking into a tape recorder, or is this the experience of hearing my voice coming out of a tape recorder, or somewhere in between that, or none of those things, or
or both.
yeah, or both?
Um, Not as strong as either of those things, and something of a mix.
Okay. And is there, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, go for it.
Is there any kind of like, I'm wondering if there's any inflection or any type of emphasis, like, is it just it itself, or is it itself, or is it like a question, it itself, or it itself? I don't know if that all makes sense, but is there anything like that?
I don't know.
Okay.
So what I was going to ask is, does it seem like this saying is of itself one unit, it itself as a unit, or is it that somehow you're breaking apart it itself?
I think it's as one unit.
Okay. And I think I'm good.
I'm good as well.
Anything else ongoing in this experience that we haven't yet talked about?
No.
So what I've got about this experience is that primarily I am presenting to myself in a cognitive and anxiety way, both, that there's something that I need to be done, that I need to do, has to be done. And cognitively, I am in some way cognizing that there's something that needs to be done, even though the something is not being specified and there aren't any words involved. So but yet I'm cognitively contemplating something some particular thing that needs to be done. And at the same time, I am anxietily, bodily, recognizing that this thing has to be done. And at the same time, I am reading a sentence that includes it itself, and I am somehow, but not as strongly as the first portion of this experience, somewhere in between innerly saying and innerly hearing, maybe neither one, but somewhere in that ballpark, focused on the one word, it itself.
Yes.
Okay. Then I'm good. Number 3.
Yeah.
All right, number 3. So I'm reading the word defensive. I'm innerly presenting that word to myself. And I'm annoyed.
Okay. And is that it, or is there anything else that we should be keeping track of?
That's it for this one.
Okay. And is the annoyed and the reading related to each other, or does that seem like two sort of separate things?
The annoyed is related to the reading, yes. I'm annoyed at what I'm reading and thinking of needing to respond to it.
And is the reading more present, less present than the annoyed needing to respond? Or doesn't that question make sense? Is one aspect of this more prominent than the other?
I would say I'm conscious that I'm reading during this moment, but that what's jumping out to me is this word, defensive, and that I'm So I would say that the word and the annoyance are more present to me.
Okay. And the word, well, tell me how the word is present to you.
I'm innerly voicing it in the same way as before. same way as most of these samples.
And is that so? I've heard a little bit of variety here. Sometimes I've heard this as being, it sounds like pretty much mostly in the speaking department. Innerly voicing is a speaking thing, and others I've heard it as being, seems like sort of diffusedly or inchoately in the ballpark of speaking and hearing, but I can't really tell the difference.
You're right. I should be more specific. So this is a little more inchoate, a little less on the speaking end of the spectrum, a little more just on the presenting end of the spectrum.
So I present this word to myself, but I don't innerly voice it. Is that correct?
Um,
And I want to emphasize that there's not a right or a wrong answer here. The question is, what is it? How does it present itself to you and your understanding of these things?
I am unsure.
Okay.
I'm unsure in this case.
Okay. So what I understand you to be sure of is that somehow there's reading going on, but the reading itself is not actually much, if at all, present to me. Maybe it's present to me, but not much. What's present is the word defensive.
I would say that the reading is somewhat present and the word defensive is popping out to me. But I would say that the reading is also tied to my annoyance.
Okay. Well, let's go to the annoyance portion then. How does that present itself?
The annoyance is I think it's both bodily and mental. And it's it's accompanied with a feeling that I need to respond to the comment I'm reading. But maybe I almost don't want to get ahead of myself there. Maybe I'll just say that yeah. It's hard for me to say more.
Okay. So what I'm gathering from that is that something of the anxiety involves a need to respond.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Annoyed, right? It's the annoyed, right?
Yeah. Yep. Thanks.
Well, it's both, but I would say more on the annoyed end of the spectrum. Yeah, more annoyed. Yeah.
Okay.
And it does involve a need to respond as well.
And by bodily, do you mean a specific portion of your body, or just that I experience my body as being involved?
Maybe more effective. Yeah, it's effective, certainly.
And does that mean effective mean not bodily, or at least not specifically bodily? It's not that I feel this in my chest or in my shoulders or in my hands or.
Yeah, I guess it's not specifically, unless it's the whole.
So what I want us to be particularly clear about is to say I'm going to say it's bodily because my theory of emotion is that emotions take place in the body. That's what I don't want us to do. I'm happy to have us say it seems bodily to me, but I can't really tell you where. But it's I feel it somehow in my body. That would be okay with me. But I would like us to. That's because I directly apprehend something bodily rather than my theory tells me it has to be bodily.
Yeah. In that case, then maybe hold on to the bodily. Yeah. I can't say more what percentage bodily versus what percentage cognitive it is at this moment.
But it does seem like to some degree bodily. So you said hold on to it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I.
Some degree bodily, yes.
Okay. Okay. Then maybe we'll come back to this too. But I would. Let's go to the. You said earlier on that your consciousness that you were reading, conscious that you were reading, and I would like us to distinguish between two different meanings of that phrase. So I want to make sure I understand what you mean. Conscious that I'm reading could be some like a meta consciousness. Tristan's reading as a fact of the universe, and there's some meta awareness. Tristan has some meta awareness of, well, I'm reading. Look at that, I'm reading. Hmm. Or consciousness of my reading could mean that I am the content of what I'm reading is somehow consciously present to me, but not much.
I'm not having meta thoughts about the reading.
Okay.
There's an awareness that the word defensive is part of something that I'm reading, let's say.
So let me see whether I understand that. So one way to understand that would be to say the word defensiveness is particularly present to me, and its way of being present to me is that, at least in part, that it's a piece of a larger sentence.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. The alternative would be I'm reading a sentence and I am particularly aware of the word defensive. And those are two separable strands of my awareness. So, my question, I guess, is this mostly one strand about defensive that has a tinge of there's a greater sentence going on here? Or does it seem like there's two strands going on? One of them is more powerful than the other?
Well, I kind of, the second way you described it seemed more fitting to me, was that maybe my awareness that I'm reading was more pronounced than I had let on. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm reading. I would say I'm reading, and I'm particularly aware of the word defensive.
Okay. So that makes it seem pretty similar to the first beep today, where I'm writing, all we imagine is light, and I'm particularly aware of the word imagine.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Right.
These things seem more similar than they do different.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So what I've got about the present beep is I am reading a sentence. There is some minimal comprehension of that sentence going on. Not in a meta way, but I'm reading with comprehension. But the much more strong than the reading with comprehension is I am innerly presenting the word defensive, which is part of that sentence. The presentation presents it as part of the sentence. And it presents itself in a way that is sort of inchoately between speaking it and hearing it, maybe more in the realm of speaking it, but we're not really sure about that. And then at the same time, I am annoyedly, maybe with a tinge of anxiety, feeling a pressure to respond. I need to get something. I need to respond to this.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's good.
Okay. Then I think I'm good.
I think I'm good as well. I just want to make sure that what we said about, sorry, I think I missed that part, Dr. Hurlbert. It was speaking the word or hearing the word or somewhere in the middle. Make sure I got that.
Inchoately in the middle, I think, is what we
Got it. Okay.
maybe on closer to the speaking side.
Okay, that's what I thought as well. Okay, sounds good. Then I'm good.
So shall we do this again?
Yes. When would you two like? We'll say my Thursday and Friday are looking. My Thursday is reasonable. My weekend, I have time. And actually, and my Friday, I should have some time as well. Oh, and tomorrow, of course, but I don't know if you want to see me again too soon. But
Friday is the best day for me, but if that's presenting issues.
Friday at the same time as today? Friday at 11, which is 11 o'clock our time, 2 o'clock your time?
Yeah, that would work for me.
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me as well.
Okay.
All right. And I would say that we're doing what it is that I think we need to do, which is to say we are trying to figure out what we mean when we say whatever it is that we say. And it's a task that is shared, I would say, both by Tristan and us. Tristan has a little different task because he's got to figure out how to capture his experience before he talks about it. We've got a different task because we've got to figure out how to hear what Tristan is idiosyncratically saying and whether he's using words that have a shared common understanding or not or whatever. That's what makes this an interesting task.
It's hard.
It is hard. And but I think it's hard in the good hard sense. I think it's a matter of trying to get our words to align with phenomena that actually present itself.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a fairly rare thing in the real world, actually. And, but I think sort of worth the effort.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Sounds good to me. I'm going to stop